Welcome back to Adventures with the Hat Commander. This is episode 2 of Vampire the Masquerade Coteries of New York. In last episode, we became a vampire. We learned that our character was a douche. And let's see if we can redeem him. So, thanks for watching. Well, Calvin, I think we've both already managed to significantly improve each other's evenings. But let's keep the ball rolling, shall we? I think we should have a toast to a new fruitful partnership. She raised her hand at one of the well-dressed concierges who have now reappeared in the showroom to refill the guest glasses. The conventionally handsome man approaches with a carafe of red liquid. A carafe, I believe it is. He pours it into the two tall glasses. It's blood again. That much is clear. You're in two minds about drinking it, but the memory of last night's hunger makes you wince. You take a tentative sip. You expected the same blandness you tasted a few hours ago, but this one you can actually savor. It's smoky and warm, making you think of a cozy cabin in the woods. Like my character knows what a cabin in the woods is like. It does strike you as a strange image for your mind to jump to when drinking human blood, but is what it is. You've never tasted anything like it. Do you like it? I think New York's caterers have very... I don't know this word. Sorry, I'm looking it up.
Burjoice.
Burjoice? Interesting. Do you like it? I think New York caterers have very bourgeois ideas about what good blood should taste like. Apologies, you must have so many questions. While we're on the topic, perhaps we should start with those related to sustenance. Yeah, I think if you don't drink, you go crazy. Or is it drink too much, you go crazy? You gotta find the happy medium. Okay, say I don't feel cool about drinking people's blood. What happens if I just stop? I understand your will to revolt against this baser instinct. I vividly remember the painful process of rearranging my mortality around it after my embrace. But the simple truth is this. If you do not feed, your hunger grows. The stronger that hunger is, the more the beast within begins to stir. When it awakens, it will take that what it craves. Only you won't have a say in how or who. As much as it might sicken you, this is your only source of sustenance now. And no matter how much you drink, you will always be tempted to have more. You can learn to control it, mind. Best start by taking a single sip from a vessel. Be prudent. Hot, fresh blood will be more satiating than most anything that can be served in a fancy glass, but it can make you more voracious. As to how much you should have, it depends. If you're frugal, you can survive many nights without a single drink, but it's risky and it will tempt the beast. Tomorrow, I shall take you hunting, and we will explore this topic further. The blood you're having tonight should be enough to keep you at ease for now. That beast you mentioned, is that a metaphor or... Oh, it's quite real, although not in a strictly physical sense. It lives in all of us. Our nature and hunger manifest. Those more religious among us connect it to the biblical Cain, the rage of the first murderer, cursed by God, seething in all his descendants. I, however, am a child of the Enlightenment. Not that it makes my struggle any easier. I have to be wary like every other kindred in this city and beyond. Individual kindred each have a unique relationship to their beast. What yours is going to be remains to be seen. But you do need to keep it under control. Each outburst endangers not just you, but also the masquerade. The concierge returns, asks for permission to intrude, which Sophie gives with a polite smile, and leans in to whisper in her ear. You note that the gallery is now almost empty. I'm being told the gallery is just about to close, but we will still have quite a lot to discuss. We'll go to one of my apartments. My jalopy is waiting downstairs. Come. The smile she puts on makes you remember the way you felt with the Latina. It's not arousing, though, more like magnetic. You find it hard to argue. Even though you're still suspicious of her authority over you, her charm momentarily wins you over. Sophie leads you to a luxurious silver Rolls Royce and invites you to sit in the back. The chauffeur, a broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, middle-aged guy, starts driving immediately. Where did we leave off? I believe I started telling you a bit more about our customs. You've heard the prince refer to our traditions. The chief among them is the masquerade. As you might have gathered from us assembling at a niche gallery after closing time, our comings, goings, and doings tend to be somewhat secretive. We do not advertise our existence. We allow myths and modern fiction to morph and muddle the facts. So, to the vast majority of kind, we remain bedtime stories and pop culture icons. Say, is that one television show about a vampire angel still popular? Ooh, Angel. That was good. One of my favorite shows. You shake your head in confusion. She shrugs. Of course, this guy doesn't know what's good. She shrugs and continues talking, looking a little bit more dejected than before. Our clandestine ways help us remain safe, allow us to explain away the occasional trip up to the rational mind of 21st century humanity and dictate much of our interactions with mortals. So, where are the perks here? You're a vampire, but you need to keep quiet about what's the point? There has to be a flip side, right? Don't get me wrong, we have power, immense power, influence over mortals. Immortality has its benefits too, of course, but we have many enemies and some know our weaknesses well. For one, sunlight burns us. That's why we rest during the day. You felt it, more like being dead than being dormant, isn't it? But we have no choice. We are night dwellers, but day sleepers. Some more folk-related threats are just legends, or occasionally a minor nuisance. Garlic, running water, even religious symbols don't repel us unless the wielder is uniquely pure and godly. Stakes through the heart, though, that's something to avoid. They do not destroy, but they do paralyze, which under the right circumstance can often be the same thing. That's a reason to have somebody like my trusted driver, Gregory, making sure you're safe when you drift away. We have many enemies, and they often know their advantage lies with daylight. You mentioned enemies. I guess that makes it necessary to watch each other's backs. Can you count on other vampires for that? She surprises you by letting out a soft chuckle before answering. No. Our little sect supplies social interactions at plenty, but it doesn't really encourage counting on someone. Support given in exchange for favors, yes, that's more like it. Long-term solidarity does occur in the Camarilla, but we are a very politicized organization by necessity. Loyalty is to your sire, to your prince, and to the sect. When you're in Elysium, like we were tonight, the sect can appear to be a monolith. The reality is more complex. Outside of official gatherings, shady deals, and a quid pro quo mentality reign supreme. She seems to be lost in thought and falls silent for a while, leaving you to ponder all the things you've learned tonight. It still feels absolutely unreal, but as piece after piece of knowledge falls into place, the image becomes almost like an entirely logical jigsaw puzzle. Whatever you wouldn't believe on your own, you've witnessed. Many questions swarm your thoughts, but the one you keep returning to is what your place in the new reality should be. The car stops. You are in the city in front of an old but well-renovated apartment building. We're here. Would you like to see your lodgings? I get my own apartment? That's neat. Consider it the first of many gifts that I'm able to grant in exchange for loyalty. Come upstairs. She leads you through a small hall with a night guard who greets Miss Langley with a good evening. You take the stairs up to the second floor. Sophie opens the door to room 209. Inside are all the amenities you could expect from a modern apartment, and some you wouldn't have deemed necessary just the previous night, including thick blinds on the windows. The back room has a comfortable-looking bed and a thick steel door with several sturdy-looking locks, but no windows. Well, how do you like it? This is great, thank you. I'm glad. Make yourself at home. Tomorrow I'll take you hunting and discuss the blood in more detail. I'll let you get comfortable. The keys are by the television set. I will come pick you up tomorrow night. Use the back room for rest. You can lock the door just in case. It stings a bit when she leaves. It's like the room suddenly became a few shades dimmer. You inspect the kitchen, hoping to find something to drink. Nothing. No regular food either. Feels strange that Kadir could be more thoughtful host than your new sire, even if only in that respect. You briefly wonder if the sheriff might have a hidden side. With nothing left to do, you lie on the couch with the TV playing in the background for company. They're going to try to make like Kadir to be like this strong but sensitive type. Gag. Columbo reruns. Good show. Kojak reruns. I haven't seen that one, but I want to. President of the United States got himself into serious trouble again. What's new? President of the United States got himself out of trouble again. Pundits start yelling over each other about things that seemed a little bit less insignificant just 2 days ago. You start drifting off, reflecting about another night of confusion, conversations, and worldview-shattering revelations. How many more before you finally understand what happened to you and what you're supposed to do now? You keep coming back to the life you left behind, the people you should contact, the things you want to pick up from your apartment. You wonder when you'll have the chance for either. As you start to feel the same tiredness that made you drift into a cold sleep last night, you settle in the back room. The bed is comforting, the lack of windows less so. You leave the light bulb on, looking at it. You realize it's the closest you'll ever come to staring at the sun on a breezy summer day again. A wave of melancholy overwhelms you. A few minutes later, your consciousness fades, and you take the plunge into darkness again, sinking, 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 sinking. All right, and this is a different screen. Hunger is the heart of vampire's existence. That was the whole tutorial. That was like a long tutorial. Well, I guess for a story game. Hunger is the heart of vampire's existence. To ignore it is to tempt the beast to take over in its desire to feed. To overindulge in feeding may threaten the masquerade while staining what humanity you have left. In coteries of New York, having high hunger is indicated by a progressively thicker blood frame around the screen, like the one you see now. As your hunger grows, so does this indicator. Your hunger may increase when you call upon your vampiric powers, or when you need to mend your wounds after a fight. I was wondering if this was just going to be a story, if I was actually going to be able to do some things. When your hunger reaches the maximum level, you will receive a warning after you complete a piece of the story. Ignore it at your own peril. Some choices might only become visible if your hunger is high enough. Similarly, high hunger may block off some choices as you will be able to see after pressing continue. All right. To decrease your hunger, you will need to feed, and whenever you see a feeding opportunity, you can take the risk to hunt and slack your hunger. To decrease your hunger, you will need to feed. Okay. You will need to keep the hunger at bay if you are to uphold the masquerade and survive the night that awaits you. You open your eyes. The bed isn't warm. The room is filled with artificial light from the ceiling. The Solia metal door is closed. Oh, I bet that's solid, but the D got messed up somehow. Normally, you'd stretch for a bit. On some mornings, you'd probably throw the quilt over yourself and snooze a moment longer. But that was before. The way you woke up now, you are fully conscious. No grogginess, nothing weighing you down. Just a nagging need in the back of your head. Hunger, not as severe as the last time, but unmistakably there. You get up and open the door to the main room. A digital clock on the TV shows you the time, 9:04 p.m. You walk over to the blinds and retract them cautiously. The only light coming in is New York City's artificial nighttime luminescence. So that's what your waking hours are going to look like now. You missed the sunlight already. You're seriously considering just walking out of the apartment and figuring this all out by yourself, but then you come back to the memory of Kadir's exotic sword being raised in the gallery. Maybe sticking around isn't that bad of an idea after all. You keep jumping channels for around half an hour and then switch to streaming services, almost as if the universe had a sense of irony. You catch True Blood in the flood of recommendations. The doorbell rings. It's Sophie. Good evening, Calvin. Slept well? Like a dead man. Curious wording, but not that far from the truth. I suppose no use dwelling on it. I think you will agree with me with time. You made the right choice yesterday. I can teach you many things about yourself, your blood, its desires, and its power. We will begin tonight. You are hungry, yes, I'm sure you are. Our kind always is. There's only one remedy, the blood. The drinks we had yesterday at Elysium are not the usual way you slack your thirst. So tonight I will assist you in your first foray into hunting. You need to learn to sense the kind of blood you desire, to understand how you can use the kinds of vulnerabilities to your advantage. Well, I'm ready to learn. Let's get started. Such eagerness, or is it just your hunger making you impatient? It's neither. It's just like, let's get on with it. You will find that drinking moderate amounts of it regularly will keep the hunger and the whispers of the beast away. You might think yourself monstrous, but there's a balance to be found here. The kiss gives the kind pleasure. You might remember this from your own embrace. Some can even become addicted to the sensation. But if you do it right, they tend to misremember your feeding. After all, vampires do not exist. They are myths, fairy tales, and pop culture mainstays, correct? She gives you a sly, knowing smile. That is why the masquerade is so important, and even more crucial than when you feed. How do I choose who to feed from? Are there better or worse targets? Isolated kind are easiest prey, of course, but much depends on context. Hunting requires a different approach in a busy club than it does on an empty street. With time, you will have the luxury of finding your preference in hunting methods and prey. For now, I suggest experimenting in moderation. Feeding from the same area repeatedly can be dangerous, but by branching out, you risk the ire of other kindred on whose domains you trespass. Lucky for you, New York City is more forgiving in this regard. New York is in somewhat of a unique position. Many of its neighborhoods remain contested or unclaimed. The reason for this is a lesson for another time, but keep the following in mind. Take opportunities to feed when they present themselves these upcoming nights. As long as you hunt cautiously and respect the masquerade at all times, you should be fine. To wit, I want you to join me for a trip tonight. Come downstairs, Gregory is waiting for us. The busy street fills the air with traffic noise, pedestrians chatter, and a mix of smells that disorient you momentarily. These warm bodies contain what you want, what you need. You catch yourself. Did you really just think of these people as mere sources of blood? It takes a nudge from Sophie to break your train of thought. Her driver opens the door for her and then tips his hat to you, gesturing to the back of the car. The car casually joins the somewhat thin New York traffic. It's still busy in a way only one of the biggest cities in the world can be, but compared to the daytime commute, it is a pleasant drive. You barely have the time to gather your thoughts and formulate new questions before the car comes to a stop. You are among the tall skyscrapers that make up Manhattan's iconic skyline. Come, Calvin, park the car. Gregory, will you? The driver just nods, and Sophie gets out. You join her, and the two of you walk through the glass doors together, then take the elevator up. You first notice an empty stage with the instruments of a string quartet still in the back, then take in the few dozen chairs in front of it. The concert seeming concluded, the patrons, all smartly dressed and posh, have spread out all over the hall. Sophie strides confidently inside, produces an invitation from her purse that she flashes in front of a security guard. You follow close and are let through without issue. It'd be nice if my guy changed his look to fit in. Let's start easy. A social setting like this one would usually prove quite challenging to an inexperienced kindred, but consider this evening a small gift from your patron. I'm hoping to procure for you a willing vessel. Just remember what I told you about taking small sips. This one I have a soft spot for. Don't damage her. Now let's see here. There he is. She noticed somebody in the crowd, flashes a heart-melting smile, and suddenly even you feel drawn to her. You haven't thought about it before, but it's laid clear before you in this moment. Sophie is beautiful. Just looking at her is a privilege. Just being with her makes you feel elated. You're totally being coerced. Everybody in the crowd, but especially the man who almost tripping over himself to reach her, clearly agrees. Edgar, I'm so happy to see you. How is your daughter? Is she with you? Oh, there she is. Julie, my girl, come over, please. There's somebody I'd like you to meet. The young woman who walks across the hall can't be more than 19 years old. It's clear from her mismatched earrings and the partially faded purple hair dye that she doesn't fit this crowd. Boo. Julie, this is Calvin. I think the two of you should get acquainted while I talk business with your dad. Awfully boring stuff, I assure you. I'm positive you'll like each other. The girl gives you a shy smile and nods toward the balcony stairs. You follow, somewhat unsure what it is exactly Sophie expects you to do. You reach a secluded space from which the entire lobby is visible. All eyes are on Sophie. They listen intently, then laugh when she does. Julie saves you the trouble of figuring out this next step. Wacky. If you're with Sophie, then I guess you're, you know. She puts her wrist to her lips and gives herself a theatrical nip, then looks at you, embarrassed but also hopeful. Yes, I do. She takes off her jacket and buttons her sleeve, then rolls it up. You see a tattoo of a cat in an astronaut suit, one feline eye winking at you. There, just enjoy. A perfectly awkward smile and a blush. You take her forearm in your hand. A quick look around confirms nobody's watching and no security cameras cover this area. You bite down gently. It's surreal. She's just given you her blood of her own It's surreal. She's just given you her blood of her own volition. How is this possible? What about the masquerade? You need to ask Sophie. Your thoughts disappear amid the bliss. There's just the taste, sweet, fresh, sanguine. You drink and drink and drink. No, stop. You tear away from the girl harder than you wanted. Still, the bite leaves just tiny punctures, almost if by instinct you lick them clean. The two holes become concealed, just like that. Julie's now leaning off the wall, pale, wobbly on her feet, but happy. She lets out a dreamy sigh, opens her eyes, a few tears fall into her shirt, tears of joy. Thank you. Please, can you walk me downstairs, please? My dad, he doesn't know. Thinks it's a condition. Miss Langley told him so. She leans on you and requests you to walk her over to the bench. She takes a seat and smiles at you. The crowd around Sophie disappears slowly, looking at her now. Only some residual ahs hang in the air. Yes, she's pretty, maybe even beautiful, sure, but not your type. What came over you before? You walk over to her. Edgar, dear, it was splendid talking to you, but we need to get going. Give Julie my best wishes. Come with, Calvin. Gregory is waiting for you out front. It's only in the car that Sophie addresses you. I can tell from your look that you took the opportunity. Good for you. That girl is exquisite, don't you think? You wouldn't tell by her demeanor, but she has so much passion. It brings out a unique bouquet in her blood. I think she knows who we are. That's not normal, right? It's not usual, that much is true, but don't worry. She will do anything I tell her to, and won't say anything to anyone that I haven't put in her pretty head first. Time for the next stop. Training wheels off. This time, Gregory Flushing Meadows, please. The driver takes the car over to the Williamsburg Bridge. You say your thoughts. I really just don't like that it's like developed this whole character for you. But anyways. Those people back at the hall, they were all entranced. Even I was under your spell. What was that? She smiles with satisfaction. The old trick, just the blood doing my bidding. We all have our talents. Some of them come from the legacy we inherit from our sire. Others can be learned with experience. I can sway people or make them fear me. I see more of the world and in a greater detail than some kindred. I can will my body to move with unparalleled precision and grace and more. All of these skills make me who I am. They also help me hunt. Okay, so what are my talents? Time will tell. You'll need to discover them yourself. When you arrive, experiment. Give different things a try. Follow your instinct and intuition. It will guide the blood. Always keep the masquerade in mind, however. It is all fine if you can disappear in plain sight or command animals with your mind, but save those overt talents for the right place and time. It only takes half an hour to reach the park at this time of night. Both you and Sophie leave the car with Gregory left behind again to find a parking spot and keep an eye on the car. Sophie seems deep in thought. She takes in the surroundings with a dreamy gaze. The sky is surprisingly clear tonight. The stars just barely visible in the light-polluted aura of the city. I feel like having a snack myself. I'll be by the fountain. Go look for somebody to your liking. See what effects you can achieve with your blood, but only pick one victim, just one, then come back. Seeing how she seems not altogether here right now, you decide to leave Sophie to her own devices and seek out your prey. From here, it looks like you have a few choices. Just tagging a stroll around the park and finding an isolated jogger or someone like them could work, but focusing on one area might work better. The New York State Pavilion might work as a secluded spot. There's a skate park nearby. In a worst-case scenario, there's bound to be some unfortunate wino around. Or maybe the tennis court nearby. There's lights coming from there, so somebody might still be playing a late-night match. They won't be alone, but they might be tired and let their guard down. As these scenarios play out in your mind, you realize you're planning how to assault a stranger in the middle of the night. Nice. It's a weird way to be, but then now familiar hunger prompts you to act. Check out the tennis court. You decide the tennis courts are as good a place as any and make your way to the bright glow of the lamps illuminating the area. Yeah, it's probably a bad choice now that I think about it. As you guessed, a pair of players, 2 men fit but older, maybe pushing 60 or finishing up a match. They're the only ones there. It's time to make a move. Oh. Barge into the showers. You think back to what Sophie did in the hall, how she's managed to focus the attention on the entire gathering on her. That might be a tall order for you, but a single person could be doable. You wait patiently until the 2 men hit the showers, get out and say their goodbyes. They say their separate ways. One of them notices you standing there. You immediately grab his attention. Good evening. Oh, man. That I was looking for what I was interested in. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I'm having a blast. You? Won both sets. Not bad for a grandpa. He's clearly very happy with himself. You decide there won't be a better moment to strike. Moving closer casually at first, then closing the distance in a single leap, you sink your fangs into his flesh. His blood flows fast and feels energizing. You'd never expect an invigorating taste like this from a guy who's at least your father's age. You only take as much as you need right now, though a voice in the back of your mind urges you to keep drinking. Fit or not, you don't want this guy on your conscience if you take too much. You put him on the ground gently and make your way back to Sophie. As you're leaving the course, a figure emerges from the shadows and stops you in your tracks. A hooded man is looking menacingly at you. What do you think you're doing barging in on my turf like this, Lick? What did you call me? A lick? What is that supposed to mean? Don't be cute with me. I know what you are. Shove that masquerade bull honky up your patootie. Better tell me who you are with before my posse shows up and we beat it out of you. Chill out. I'm with the Camarilla. He does anything but chill out. He immediately tenses up, gives you an extremely nasty look, and bares his fangs. You with the ivory tower... I can't even... Clucks? No, you can't think of a non-bad word for that. Huh? Well, tonight's my lucky night. How's this an anarch? I'm a frick you up and bring you to Callahan. He'll have some fun breaking your shins, and maybe by the end of it, I'll get to have a nice long sip. I wonder what you taste like, Lick. I mean, at first I thought because he's calling me a lick that maybe he's a werewolf, because it might be like a derogatory term for vampires for them. So that's another possibility. We'll see. He does his best impression of Hannibal Lecter's and a nice Chianti shtick, but he's not as intimidating as he thinks. Ooh. You take off faster than you've ever run. The hoodlum has trouble keeping up, but howls behind you like an animal and gives chase anyway. Yeah, he must be a werewolf. As you reach the Unisphere again, you slow down, noticing two people near the sculpture, a man and a woman tangled in a passionate embrace. No, not exactly. It's Sophie feeding, but this whole scene is set up so that it looks like a couple is getting intimate in public. She pulls it off like she's done it 100 times before. It occurs to you that she probably has. The man is unsure on his feet as she lets go of him and leads him towards a nearby bench. Noticing you, she whispers something in his ear and leaves him. Her driver appears from behind a tree. Well, Calvin, how did it go? You're about to answer when the same figure as before emerges from one of the alleys. He looks at the three of you and a predatory smile creeps onto his lips. You thought you could run away from me, Lick. Think you'll be safe with your friends? Well, I have friends too. He makes a motion to shout, but two things happen almost at the same time. First, that feeling of warmth and beauty emanating from Sophie flares up again, entrancing both you and the hooded thug. His shout comes out as a weak, confused squeak. Second, Gregory produces a wooden stake from a holster under his jacket and slams it into the thug's chest. Just like that, in a few seconds, the posturing vampire is down, so he's a vampire, on the ground, paralyzed. I see you've made a friend, Calvin. Curious choice of company, I would say. Who is he? He said something about presenting me to somebody named Callahan. Ever heard of him? She looks shocked for a split second, then recovers her regular countenance. Yes, I have. This hoodlum is Anarch, then. All right, I was right. Curious. Corona Park had not been claimed by any kindred last I checked. Let's go to the car. We'll put him in the trunk and present him to Goodyear tomorrow night. I'm sure he'll be delighted to make this unbound acquaintance. Gregory carries the staked vampire and dumps him in the car's trunk like a mannequin. It's a strange sight, and you're quite happy you're not in the poor fricker's shoes right now. It's almost surprising that you can get away with just casually throwing a stiff into your car and driving away. But then you remember that Sophie has been doing this far longer than you have. Still, the nagging thought that anything you did tonight could have been recorded on a CCTV camera or picked up by a rando with a half-decent smartphone and streamed online fills you with dread. Hunting and using your abilities is a dangerous business. It's clear that this whole being a vampire thing has about as many caveats as it has perks. You're taken out of your headspace by Sophie's voice. I will pick you up tomorrow night, same as tonight. I have some business to attend to at Elysium, and I expect you to accompany me. Plus, our friend in the back needs to be properly introduced to Kadir and the prince. I'm sure he'll have some interesting things to say to the court. Her voice is cold, cruel, and nothing like the enchanting personality she showed at the gallery earlier tonight. Sophie is clearly a woman of many faces. Oh yeah, I can imagine he's going to enjoy meeting Kadir. I hope he gives him a good grilling. The guy's a patootie hole. Oh, Kadir will enjoy it too, I'm sure. She pauses, seemingly lost in thought for a while. You haven't told me how your hunting went. Getting the hang of it, I would hope? I think I am, yeah. I'll cope. I'm glad. She doesn't question you further. She seems distracted, not all there. Her thoughts drift, and the car remains silent until you reach your apartment. We will pick you up tomorrow evening. Good night. Just like that, without any further courtesy, Sophie leaves, driven to her apartment by Gregory with the body in the trunk right in the middle of Manhattan. I hope I get to choose like sides and stuff. I hope it doesn't pigeonhole me down some route. Did you cross paths with situations like these in the past, unknowingly? What other secrets did you pass on the streets without knowing their true nature? Your haven is just as you left it hours ago. Although the sun won't come up for some time, you feel tired. You learned something about yourself today, and it'll take time to process. You're not in the mood for television, and the few books on the shelves in the apartment are either in languages you don't speak or sound like a boring read. Nothing left to do but rest. You settle in the back room, lock the door, a moment of hesitation, but then a decision. This time you turn the light off. You think back to Julie. How many people in the city know about this vampiric society? How many are willing accomplices in sustaining it? And the thug you met in the park. If he's not Camarilla, then what is he? Are there independent vampires? How does that work? More questions. You begin wondering if there's ever going to be a night when you can start crossing them off the list instead of adding to it. You close your eyes. You sink into now familiar voids of nothingness. It greets you with open arms like an old friend. You open your eyes. It's pitch dark here, the blackness of a coffin drifting in the abyss. Oh, right, the light. You grasp for the switch, flip it. The familiar cramped room with a steel door and no window comes into view. You emerge from the bedroom fully awake, just like yesterday. This time, however, Sophie is waiting for you comfortably seated on the sofa in your living room space, a book in her hand, The Melancholy of Resistance. The title's sure on brand. Good evening, Calvin. Sorry to kept you waiting. To be fair, I haven't been here long. I was enjoying reminiscing about the time when I called this my haven. The decor was much different, of course. Come, we have an appointment. I received word Elysium would be called again tonight on account of your unruly friend from Corona Park. This should be a great opportunity for you to mingle. She keeps talking as you walk downstairs and get in the car. Gregory gives you a slight nod and a small smile while opening the door for Sophie. He starts the car when you take your seat in the back. Most of the Primogen Council is bound to be there, at least those who usually attend. Probably some other important personalities you do well to at least learn about. You never told me if there's any savoir-vivre kind of rules I should respect when talking to other vampires. Knowing that you're among your superiors is probably the most important. In our society, status comes with age. Pardon my sincerity, but you are insignificant. Not even associating with me can make the fact that you've been kindred for barely a few nights be forgotten. So know your place, stay out of your superior's business, and show the utmost respect. Thanking the prince for sparing you and maybe having a friendly chat with Kadir publicly might show your gratefulness for being a part of the Camarilla now. I would suggest you make it sincere. At any rate, you should behave yourself tonight. Remember what I told you about reflecting on me as your patron. I have a reputation to uphold in the court. Do not tarnish it. There it is. She might have saved you. She might be protecting and teaching you, but it's clear what she's really concerned about, her own interests. You step into the art hole with something of bad memory. The last time you were here, your entire world had been turned upside down, and your existence nearly ended. But tonight, there's very little outward hostility. Yes, Kadir gives you a look that's definitely intended to remind you of your place, but the prince, also in attendance, seemed pleased to see you. Welcome, Sophie, Calvin. Did I get that right? Good evening to both of you. I understand there is somebody else you wish to present to the court tonight. Yes, Prince. They will be joining us shortly. My assistant is retrieving them presently. This better be worth the prince's time, Langley. The prince gives Kadir a cold glance. Forgive the sheriff's harshness. He's in a particularly foul mood tonight. Something to do with Calvin's begetter eluding his grasp, I believe. Ouch, that must have hurt his ego, even if his only reply is a crooked smile. The mention of your sire makes you come back to all the talk of eschewing societal norms and disillusionment with the status quo you enjoyed back in the club. Look at you now, behaved, agreeable. She likely wouldn't be too happy with this whole setup. Prince, court, hierarchy, titles. But hey, she's gone, probably forever. If you ever break out of this, it'll be on your own. The flaring up of the whispers in the gallery hall break you out of your thoughts. Gregory enters the room, the jumpsuit-clad inert vampire still staked on his shoulder. The show's about to start. Sophie's driver places his charge in the middle of the room and nods respectfully to Kadir. The sheriff approaches the vampire and removes the stake from his chest. The captive's eyes flicker to life, and he starts looking around in disbelief. Like a cornered animal, he backs out on all fours, keeps going in circles, and he realizes he's trapped. Kadir steps on the man's chest and pins him on the floor. Who do we have here? Oh, frick. Oh, shoot. No, come on, don't. Silence. The sheriff takes on an aura of utter dread. He appears as if he's a primal force of nature that's out to get you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do but shrivel in terror. The beast inside you shrieks, and you could swear it happens in unison with the instincts of some of the other guests here tonight. It's unlike anything you've experienced in his company during your turbulent first night as a vampire. He really did go easy on you, all things considered. It seems like it takes all of the hoodlum's willpower to not crawl into a fetal position and start crying. No, please, don't hurt me, man, don't. You and me are going to have a little talk downstairs at the prince's discretion. Please go ahead, my sheriff. You heard the prince. Get up, let's go. He doesn't wait for a confirmation. He just grabs the man and drags him, kicking and screaming, out of the room. Conversations start all around you, some whispered, some quite overt. Sophie looks somewhat bored of the whole affair, her eyes wandering from art piece to art piece, clearly finding nothing to her particular liking. This guy's shifty and desperate. There might be more to him than meets the eye. Will Kadir manage to deal with him alone? What a ridiculous notion. Of course he will. What is one cornered rat for an old, experienced predator? Excuse me. Sophie leaves your side and goes to a corner of the gallery where a group of kindred, some seemingly pretty old-fashioned, gathered. Concierge offers you a drink. Still warm. It smells nice. Just a sip to start you off. A splash over your palate, coating your tongue and the inside of your cheeks. Nourishment. You're left to your own devices. You have a quick look around. The prince is currently talking to a dark-skinned woman that you recall seeing here those few nights ago. She has a cold but notable countenance to her. Their conversation seems to be casual. A loud, shrill laugh turns your attention to the bespectacled man who you saw with Sophie on the night of your judgment. He's making the rounds, chatting up different patrons. You feel somebody's eyes on you. A casually dressed, plain-looking man stands alone near a column, watching you. He turns his gaze away sheepishly when he realizes you noticed. You approach the prince, trying to stay as respectful to her private conversation as possible. She glances at you as you step forward, her scrutinizing gaze mimicked by her companion. She addresses the dark-skinned woman before turning to you. Excuse me for just a moment, Samaria. Yes, Calvin, what is it? I wish to thank you for sparing me, Prince. I realized it wasn't an easy decision to make, and I wanted to express my sincere appreciation. How thoughtful of you. She takes a long look at you before she continues. I didn't do it from the kindness of my unbeating heart. You are an asset to Miss Langley, to the Camarilla, and to me. I believe I made the right decision. Prove to me and the other kindred of this city that it was so. There might be more to your future nights than just survival and servitude. The dark-skinned woman looks impatiently at you and catches the prince's attention. Forgive me, that's all the time I can spare right now. We have some things to discuss with Samaria still. Enjoy your night, Calvin. You leave the two women to their conversation, which they get back to almost immediately after the prince turns to Samaria. You notice Sophie mingling with the other kindred, clearly in her element and not to be disrupted. Kadir hasn't come back yet, so you can probably still find some time for at least one conversation. The man notices your attention, but it takes a few minutes before he pauses his mingling for long enough to actually approach him. He looks at you quizzically. I figured he was the one that maybe had a different opinion at the time, so maybe he's somebody we want on our side. Thomas Arturo. Pardon? It's my name. I assumed you'd like to know. I know you by name only, of course, Calvin. I didn't give myself a last name. I guess there's plenty of people that don't have last names in here, I think. I don't know. Calvin, embraced just a few nights ago, huh? Well. How's Underdeath treating you? It takes some getting used to, for sure. Oh, it sure does. Good thing we have an eternity to make the best of it, right? He takes a moment to clean his glasses, completely ignoring you until he's done and puts them back on. I'm sorry, I got a bit distracted. You know, most of us don't need to wear these, right? I could see just fine without them, but it's a statement. The damn things keep catching specks of dust and other assorted stuff, though. Never stay clean for long. Sometimes I think they're more trouble than they're worth, wouldn't you say? Probably, if you don't need them. I used to wear glasses, and I stopped because I barely needed them. My vision was good enough without them because they just became a pain in the rear. I say if it's a pain to wear them and you don't need them, why do it? Like I said, it's a statement. Inconvenience is no excuse to stop pursuing perfection. What else is there, really? Okay. All right. That was a nice chat, but I have to catch up with a few other fellows tonight. Talk to you later, Jeannie. Hey, Jeannie. He doesn't even give you a chance to say goodbye. He's already off, grabbing 2 glasses of a concierge's tray and handing one to a mustached man nearby. A loud exchange near the staircase grabs everybody's attention. Kadir's back. The hoodlum is with him. The sheriff pushes his unfortunate victim inside the room. The vampire that threatened you last night is a mess. That stupid hat is still inexplicably on his head, covering some of his ruined face in welcome shadow. He's barely conscious. His shin is broken, you think, something protruding there, making the pant leg bulge. One arm seems twisted at a strange angle. Very little blood, surprisingly, but clearly a whole lot of hurt. Well, Kadir, did our guest cooperate? Tell the prince your name. It's Howard. And who do you run with, Howard? The Midnighters. An anarch coterie. My prince. for some time now, though from what this one told me, the name is about the only legacy the group has kept over the years. I see. Hey, Prince, I didn't mean it. I didn't. A loud crack makes some of the guests audibly gasp as Kadir's slap dislocates the man's jaw. Spray of blood creates something like an abstract art piece on the floor. This one is guilty of threatening a member of the Camarilla and claiming a domain without the prince's approval. That alone would be enough to pass swift judgment, but he is also anarch scum. My prince, there can be only one verdict, final death. Do your duty, Sheriff. Unless, of course, somebody would like to play at being a good Samaritan like our dear Miss Langley a few nights ago. The look the prince serves you at Sophie is a cruel jest. Sophie takes it gracefully, smiling and slipping her arm under yours in a strange public show of affection. Nobody says anything. The vampire named Howard jumps to his feet and makes for the window. Ooh, what do I want to do? Celerity. Oh, let's use powers, man. In a split second, you make your choice. Focusing your blood, you dash forward and grab Howard by the back of his jumpsuit, pulling him back from the window. You expect some resistance, but find you don't have to worry about it when a swift cut separates Howard's head from his body. You let go, and the headless corpse slumps to the ground. Kadir is standing between you and the window, his sword drawn and an ugly smile on his face. Well, Calvin, your eagerness is laudable, if unnecessary. That Howard fellow couldn't have hoped to escape his fate, not facing Kadir's expertise. However, I have made note of this show of loyalty on both your and your patron's accounts. I would like to thank Miss Langley for bringing this anarch thug to my and Kadir's attention. I assume all have found the verdict satisfactory. It's a rhetorical question, and everybody here knows it. Then I consider tonight's meeting concluded. Good night to all of you. She steps out of the room, and you see that many of the guests move to do the same. Sophie seems to be conversing with somebody, a serious-looking man in a trench coat, about what transpired. You probably have the time to strike up a conversation of your own, too. Kadir al-Asmai is still here, for one, but clearly getting ready to leave. Arturo is still here, chatting with the remaining attendants. For a moment, you think the man who was looking at you earlier left, but he's still here, keeping to himself in a secluded corner. The plain-looking guy from before is clearly uncomfortable here and is ready to leave. You approach him as he's making his way to the stairs. Any feelings on how the trial went? Happy with the result? Not much of a trial, was it? Most of it was our dear sheriff torturing one of us while we sipped blood from fancy glasses. His bitterness is palpable. Apologies, I'm not in a great mood. The name's Larson, or you can call me Robert. Either's fine. So do you have a role in this court, or are you just here for the company? That's a loaded question. I'm one of the Prince's Panhard's primogen. I'm usually here to advise the prince, but clearly that wasn't necessary, so I guess I'm not entirely sure why I came here tonight. What about you, though? How does it feel to have had a hand in the same kind of business that could have ended in your final death? No, wait, that's unfair. I forgot how new you are to all of this. Not sure if you were paying attention the other night, but when the prince mentioned diverging opinions on whether you should be executed or not, that was me. I was the diverging opinion. Oh, I thought it was the other guy. Not that I'm ungrateful, but out of curiosity, what is your reasoning? My reasoning? Just common sense, that you shouldn't be blamed for being assaulted and essentially murdered to boot. But as Kadir loves to say, the traditions are clear. Listen, I don't want to be rude, and I appreciate you reaching out, but word of advice, stay away from me. Many vampires in the sect regard my position as primogen to be some kind of a joke, you know? You talk to me, they'll notice, and they'll hold it against you. You have a quick look behind you and see that a few of the kindred keep shooting you curious glances. One woman in particular, a redhead boasting a fanciful hairstyle, watches you disapprovingly. Some of them already do, I imagine. Listen, I need to go. Enjoy your night and all that. With just a single look at the rest of the thinning crowd, he leaves the gallery. It's right about when Sophie also ends her conversation and walks over to you. Interesting evening, wasn't it? Come, Gregory's waiting downstairs. She seems preoccupied with something and not in a talkative mood. It's an awkward ride back to the city. This time you arrive at another building just 2 streets across from your apartment. She brings you upstairs through a very nice lobby and a luxurious-looking hall into her domain. Please have a seat. I shall be right with you. You take in your surroundings. The apartment is like a gallery, an old school smoking room that you've seen in some period piece once, and a nouveau riches living room, meticulously combined together. Apologies, old habits die hard. Clearly some stick with you even after your death. She drags on her cigarette and breathes. How is she doing that? Can you do that? Oh, yes. You might not know now. You might not know. It takes some practice, but you can keep smoking if you'd like. Other things too. Experiment. You might surprise yourself. Why? But I did not bring you here to show off. This is where I rest these nights. That door in the back, the bedroom, similar to yours. I have servants and bodyguards in addition, of course. I brought you here because I need you to trust me. When I told you before that I need your best behavior to uphold my good standing with the court, I meant it, but that's not the whole story. I have your interest in mind too. That's why I've given you your own haven, why I'm trying to teach you how to navigate this new reality. But you need to trust me or else this won't work. You can come here whenever you feel like asking me something, when you're in trouble too, though I hope that won't happen often. I would ask you to come here when you wake up tomorrow. I'll have something to discuss with you. Okay, I'll come over first thing tomorrow night. I appreciate that. That silence again. There's definitely something on Sophie's mind tonight, but she doesn't seem eager to share it with you just yet. I'm leaving for another visit. Come downstairs with me. We'll give you a lift. Quick trip, a promise that you'll show up tomorrow, and some polite goodbyes later. You open the door to your haven and gather your thoughts. It's exciting in a way, being dragged deeper and deeper into the secret society and its rules. Whatever Sophie's planned for you, it's bound to teach you more about this thing you have become. You sink into your vampire sleep with just a sliver of hope. It's a welcome change. One more darkness falls upon the city. You wake up, same as you have these past few nights, in a windowless room. As you pry open the reinforced steel door, you look out the window to see invariably a sky bereft of sunlight. Then it hits you, the hunger. For a moment, you let yourself wonder if there will ever come a night when it's just not there. Given what you've learned thus far, you probably have as much chance of kick-starting your heart with jumper cables. You lock the door behind you and head over to Sophie's apartment. You did promise to call on her. Might as well not keep the lady waiting. And hey, what else are you going to do? Call Jess? Yeah, right. What would you tell her? If she's even picked up at all, she'd probably use the opportunity to stick some more needles in you, or worse, persuade you to come back. Or go back to work. Yeah, who are we kidding? HR probably found a replacement the day after you went missing. Nobody there cares if you got kidnapped or turned into a creature of the night. Oh, great, you didn't make any friends there. These thoughts put you in a weird mood. It's a strange sensation to walk the crowded streets, same as you have so many times before, but feeling so disconnected. All these people, you're not one of them, not anymore. You're a vampire kindred, and you need to carve your own path in this strange new existence. One way or another, appropriately enough, you arrive at Sophie's building just as that thought crosses your mind. Quick word with the security guard, and you're let into the elevator. Apparently Miss Langley is expecting you. Of course she is. You knock and wait patiently as the footsteps on the other side grow closer. Finally, the door opens and Gregory, Sophie's driver, invites you in. All right, I think this is a good place to stop. Thanks for watching our second episode of Vampire the Masquerade Coteries of New York. I hope this was not miserable. You just basically hearing me read and making like 3 choices this whole game. I mean, this is what this game is. Maybe you are just listening to it in the background. That's what I do with a lot on my YouTube. Anyways, have a good one. Thanks.